Okay, Mendy, want to take it away?
Yes. First is I'd like to start off by thanking you all for joining. My name is Mendy Palace. I'm here with Aaron Zlotowitz. A big shout out to The Real Deal for organizing this talk and putting it all together. In the next couple minutes, we're going to cover the AIs that you could be using, you should be using, and the ones that people are already using for real estate. So feel free to post any questions in the chat. I'm going to be monitoring that, and we're going to also have a couple minutes for questions. So jumping right in, when it comes to real estate, we're breaking down the types of AI that are being used into three categories. The first one is generative AI. So think like bots, LLMs like ChatGPT, and anything that you'd be using for creation, summarization, and etc. The second category that we're going to be breaking down is analytical AI. So think processing data, running high-level reports. And the third category is automation. So Aaron's going to go through on a higher level some concepts about this, but those are the three categories. So just before we jump in, is bear in mind that yes, AI is not perfect, and yes, AI can make mistakes. But if you're leveraging AI and you're looking over the output versus creating the result from scratch, then there's no denying that those benefits are huge. So now jumping right in, I'm going to pass over the floor to Aaron to start going through some of the actual practical use cases for AI in real estate.
Thank you, Mendy. And yeah, again, thank you to everyone for coming. Thank you to the Real Deal team. Okay, so I wanted to start with so this is a report. Okay, I'll explain what this is. We actually put this together for a client who wanted, they basically take their T12s every month. Every month they this happens. Takes their T12s for their buildings, sends it into an AI that reads through every single line item, says, okay, this gives it the location, gives the unit, the amount of units, the property type, and it goes through every line item. It says this seems like it's too high, that seems like it's too high, and it flags a bunch of items. Each one of those flagged items that gets sent to another AI, which is specialized for research, and it goes and it checks up in that location, checks up local comps, it checks up everything and looks, okay, so let's say over here, trash removal was $10,000, was almost $11,000. It says, okay, a 30 unit property in this area should not have a bill of $11,000, and actually goes and it checks and sees what the normal pricing is. And then it does that for every single line item it finds, collates it all together, and actually categorizes it by types. This is the operations and maintenance report. That they have different people at the company who deal with different categories. So they actually have it split. There's a third AI that actually takes all the results and splits them up properly. And then these get put into emails, combined into emails and sent out to the relevant people. This happens every single month. So this is a real report. I just anonymized it for the privacy of the client, but this is a real report. It went through, it saw that their trash removal was too high, their payroll expenses for a 30-unit property of $20,000 just doesn't seem like it makes sense. Their temp staffing is $9,000. It explains why. And then it goes into a slightly more detailed version of what's going on. It actually breaks down why it's too high. And then there's actually this is really the back end almost. This is the AI's actual thought process of how it came up with why this is too high. So this is just here more as like a reference point. The main thing is these first two pages, but they get this report every single month on every single property, all sent out automatically. You don't have to think about it, it just goes. And they don't have to have someone sitting there digging through. They could focus their attention on what matters and not have to, have like pay a bunch of offshore people or whatever to actually go and do this. This happens within minutes, and it happens automatically. Okay, so that's this. That's like Mendy said, this is analytical. This is like an analytical. The next thing I wanted to cover, the next use case, I'm going to show more like this is a mix of what you could do now compared to where we're going to get to. So this is what we could do right now. This is just ChatGPT. Now you'll notice I switched it to O3. I'm going to send this prompt now. Basically what I'm trying to do is, let's say I'm looking to acquire some properties. So I wrote out, I had AI help me write this, a very detailed prompt to do research, finding me finding me prospects for my acquisitions. I'm not I'm going to post this prompt in the chat if anyone wants to reuse it. But while I'm going to explain what it's doing and where this is going as it researches. So this is I chose the O3 model in particular because it's going to take some serious time looking this up. It'll take at least a minute. I'm going to, here, let me just drop this in the chat and then that's the prompt. Sorry, it's too long. I will send it out after. So where this is now is ChatGPT could do this, but it could really only pull from, you can actually see where it's pulling from. It could only pull from the web and anything that's made available on the web. The kind of pay-gated ones like your Zoom info and all the different CoStar, thank you. And like all these, they're pay-gated. They don't, and they usually don't even have APIs, so you can't even build something that would access them. But so right now it's really just what you can find online. But where this is going to go is if someone is going to make a real property, like a database that has a good API and connect to ChatGPT, if you pay for access, that means everyone else is gonna have to do that or they're gone. Because why would I pay an analyst to go sit there doing it if I could do it myself with ChatGPT in a fraction of the time and the cost? So everyone's gonna have to do it. So then you're gonna have what's happening now is gonna be you're gonna see on steroids. But so really we're already at the point where you're gonna see in a second, you can get a very good report out of just within a minute, 2 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. It might take that long, and that's only on web data. It's only getting better and better and better.
Just Aaron, I see a question in the chat is someone's asking when you would be using when you would be using an O3 versus 4.0 or the different models.
Okay, sure. So 4.0 is, like it says here, great for most tasks, meaning if you're writing, the real difference is 4.0 doesn't do this. It doesn't do this sit there reasoning and look, you could see it's thinking through, it's looking at results, it's going through this, it's basically in its head, for lack of a better word. So that's for writing, you don't need it to sit there doing that. For writing, you just want it to be creative and just flow. So email drafting, that sort of thing, basic back and forth, basic web search. O3 is like the polar opposite, is their flagship, like high-end model. It's the most expensive one if you were paying per use case, as opposed to the subscription model I'm on, per use as opposed to the subscription I'm on. But that's what O3 is for. O4 Mini High is O3, but using a O4 Mini and O4 Mini High are the same model. High just means you'll spend more time doing this. And O4 Mini is kind of the O3, but a weaker version of it. So it's cheaper and you can use it more, but it doesn't give you as good of a result. So anyways, so now.
And I just see a question, if you can just go over the prompt and in terms of like how to prompt, is there prompt optimization?
Okay, sure. Yeah, sure. So we'll go through the prompt really quick and then we'll go look at the results. So
how you came up with this specific prompt. Yes.
Okay. So the general idea with the prompt is you want to give it as clear instructions as possible. We're not dealing with a magic trick. AI is not a magic trick. So if you're going to give a prompt if you were going to talk to an intern and the intern wouldn't understand what you're saying, AI is not going to either, most likely. So I came very specific. First of all, I explained very clearly what I want. I want to acquire commercial properties in New York City for my real estate portfolio. I need it, and now I want 5 of them. Now I went into the criteria. I think this was generic. This is what AI really came up with for the specific criteria. But the point isn't what the criteria are. The point is you should put in what your criteria are. You put in what kind of properties you're looking for, what you should be looking for. If you're looking for the owners, all these different details, what details you want to get back. And then I also said put in an organized report format. Then this is what it came back with.
If I can just add to that, I would say what I find is a good hack to when you're trying to think of a prompt is to ask ChatGPT what you should be asking it. So you can say, this is my result and this is what I'm trying to get. Write me a prompt and ask me questions to clarify what it is exactly that I'm trying to get to. And then going through those steps, you should be able to get pretty solid prompt out that should give you a good output.
Exactly. Thank you, Mendy. And then, so now you could see here what I asked for. I actually get with sources, I get results. I have 5 properties that I can go. See, it actually messed up the formatting a little bit, but yeah, here's number 2. It came back with a few properties, and then give me a full report. You can actually, if you wanted to do this, if you want to really get in all in, you could, if you would do that same prompt into deep research. I'm not going to do it now because it's going to take about 20 minutes to run. But if you could do it into deep research, and it'll do a much. This is deep research is also it's like this. It's the same model that did this, but it goes and it's given 20 minutes and like the ability to store its information and look back at it, so it could go for much longer, and it reads through dozens, if not hundreds, of sources. And so it really actually takes 20 minutes to run. But that's like the next level of this. But you have to be very specific with your prompt, because if it doesn't have a clear direction, it's going to spend 20 minutes going down the wrong way instead of 2 minutes or 3 minutes. But that's, I think, a good picture of just this is really where you could be using ChatGPT today, and just have in mind of where this is going to be going to. You can this is something you would be paying an analyst for, and now you can have ChatGPT do it for you. A third use case that we've done, and this is more just really for data processing, is I don't really have a demo for this. So I'm going to stop sharing because the demo we have is client information only, and I wasn't able to really figure out a way to censor it. But they want we built for them where they have their underwriting model it's a Google Sheet. And so they have someone who sits there and takes the OM, reads through it, finds all the relevant information, puts it into the OM, and then they maybe do a little research to add it in. It's a little like they do a little research on, let's say, the property tax. This was actually, as it turns out, New York has an API for all the Department of Finance data. So I was able to build where they drop in the OM they get an upload button, they drop in the OM, their model then gets spit out, a fresh copy of their model gets spit out with all the information pulled out and written in exactly where it's supposed to be, perfectly formatted. And it actually goes and it pulls in the bit of information they needed that was coming from outside of that was the property tax. That actually gets that from the Department of Finance's database and populates that in. So they get a fully done with the rent roll and everything in under 2 minutes, and with just literally one drag and drop. That's the whole, and they're done.
I just see a question in the chat is when you would be using, let's say, the paid version versus the free version in terms of output. Is there a difference? What your usage limits are, things like that within ChatGPT. Yeah.
Okay. If you're just using it as like a email spell check, then you could just stick on the free plan, unless you're using it so much that you get told, oh, you're reaching your usage limits for the next few hours, and you keep running into that. They're like, all right, I gotta upgrade. You don't get access to the O3 model on the free plan. You get a limited access to the O4 mini model. That's what the think deeper, there's a think or reason button on the free plan. That's what that's referring to. It can move your request over to the O4 mini, but you don't get to really get that choice. You get stricter limits on the regular 4.0 model, and you get a lot fewer deep research requests per month. Okay.
And then just going a little deeper into an agent, how would you define an AI agent? What is that considered in terms of, let's say, these tasks that you're setting up, where you can have them be done automatically, and just a little deeper into that?
Okay, so an AI agent is a purposely vague term because the people who came up with it were trying to sell things. But what it generally refers to is anything more than just sending a message to ChatGPT, using AI for something. The next that property management, the property analysis could be called an agent. What's called again the OM analysis for the underwriting could also be called an agent. The deep research is an agent that's built into the ChatGPT app at this point. Then all of them have it. Grok has that. Gemini has that. Claude recently got it too. Grok has that. Everyone has it. But the agent is really anything that's not just you talking to a chatbot. It's kind of giving a chatbot the ability to do more on its own, like agency, for lack of a better term. But it's a very broad category. I saw that people were asking the differences between the different models, the different providers. So between ChatGPT versus Grok versus Copilot versus Claude versus Gemini. So ChatGPT and Gemini are probably the closest to each other in the sense that they have more or less the same features available to both. I don't think there's not much that one has that the other doesn't. it really comes down to which one you really, if you're locked into an ecosystem, so you're using Google Workspace for everything, your company's IT, we're using Google, you're going to stick with Gemini. Otherwise, it's kind of, for lack of a better term, a personality thing. Like the AI is the first technology that can be said to have a personality in a sense. It's like I don't use Gemini because I just find I don't enjoy the conversation, for lack of a better term. It's just hard to, but not much of a real difference. Claude is better at coding and it's better at writing. So if you're just doing writing, or if anyone here is more technically minded, Claude is amazing at coding. Actually, that's the only other one I pay for separately besides for ChatGPT, for that reason. But it does not, it's not as feature rich as ChatGPT. Has fewer models. It recently got the research, but they don't have they don't have Canvas. There's certain things they don't have, so it's not at feature parity. Grok is a wild card. I don't really use it because there's nothing it has that I need that the other models I have don't. But also they do play with the system prompt a lot, which is what defines how it works. It defines how it works, but the process prompt defines how it works, and it kind of changes a lot because Elon Musk has a whim. So I don't consider it to be necessarily dependable. And Copilot is basically just Microsoft branded ChatGPT. It's actually running ChatGPT in the back end.
Just going back to with agents, because that's a lot of the buzzword, a lot of the things that you hear about agents. The general concept is what they're coming to do and what they're trying to eliminate is the manual, the repetitive tasks that you're doing, that you're setting up these agents to do for you. And then just, I don't know if you can just demo this with a ChatGPT, showing how you can set up like a task. Every morning you can have it pulling for you the headlines from whatever you would want it to pull for you. You can have it pulling the latest stock prices for things that you might be interested, the treasury, the yield, any kind of information that you would online yourself go and search. You can have that task set up for you pretty simply just by going into ChatGPT and doing that.
Okay, so that's actually another difference between, thank you, Mendy, that between 03 and 04 versus 40. I know their naming scheme don't worry, is horrendous, but 03 and 04, the ones that say reasoning over here, you can schedule this. You can schedule things like you said. So I'm just going to say this. Let's say every Monday morning, I want a report of 5 vacancy acquisition prospects. So I just say, run this for me every Monday morning at 8. I'll give it a second. It's going to, you see, I'm going to press edit so you can see, and now it's going to condense the prompt down, but I could go in if I wanted to, I can go in and edit this to be the full prompt, and it's going to go, and this conversation will do that same prompt every single week at Monday at 8 a.m.
So that's pretty neat. And then just getting a little more technical is, I don't know if you can give a little under the hood where the OM creation, where we demoed that you can take an OM and have that information automatically pulled into an underwriting model. What kind of is the under the hood of that, where how that's working, those workflows?
So in that particular case, so what it's doing is, so that was a mix of, in that particular way we did it, it was Google Sheets. Google Sheets is actually a lot better for this because they have the ability to build programs on top of a Google Sheet. So I built a program on top of a Google Sheet that takes an upload, sends that PDF upload I used Claude for this because it's excellent at analysis. It analyzed the whole PDF, came back with a structured output that I was able to then sort out, and sent that back to the program. The program took that output and placed it. I had pre-programmed where everything's supposed to go, placed everything where it's supposed to go. And then separately, I had an API call to the Department of Finance to get the taxes. It is a very technical process to do that kind of agent. Is a real technical build out. Yes, you could connect an agent to a proprietary system to report an internal data. If that internal data system, proprietary system, has an API, then you can build a program, an AI that has the ability to do, it's called function calling, or tool use. And this is what ChatGPT did for web search, or they all did for web search. They kind of told the model, hey, if you need to do a web search, write the following words, and it'll write out internally. It writes out, do a web search for, and then it puts in quotes what it needs to search. And then a tool actually goes and performs that search and gives it back the results. So you can set some, if you want, you could ask ChatGPT to help you build this, or if you have someone on your team, would do this for you. You could go and have them go, you could set up the tool, you get the API access. Just for those who are not aware of what an API is, just a kind of is a key that it's a key that systems are able to set up that how do like you can to give people access to the data. There's a link that you can send requests to, and it sends back information. And some of them can be authorized only. You need an API key. It's like only like an email password kind of concept. Before programs, you can only access our API if you have a key, and then they could use that key to bill. You can use the key to bill to ChatGPT won't let you will bill you for every time you use their API, that kind of thing. So you can, if you get the API key to that external source, you can to that proprietary source, you get an API key that only lets you into your part of the database. You can then have it use that as a tool use and go send and get request data from it.
If you can just run through what are tools that you would be using to make this kind of thing, what kind of technical background do you need? How the barrier to entry, getting started with that.
You could use like these no-code platforms like Make.com, Zapier, any of those to do these things. If you don't have any, if you're starting out, it's definitely the best way to get started. With time and experience of structure, with time experience of like how to structure these things, you could start asking ChatGPT or Claude to write you the code for these things and build more custom programs. But you could start out very easily. They have these platforms, Make.com, Zapier, where everything is very modular. Here, connect to my email, connect to ChatGPT, connect to this. And it's all made very straightforward. And you can even ask ChatGPT, hey, how would I build this in Zapier? And it'll give you a step-by-step of what to do. And then there's some customization that would need to be done for a proprietary system that they don't have built into, but ChatGPT could very easily help you with that if you can point it at the right documentation.
Yeah, I see a question. Which system would you recommend to connect for internal data reporting? So you want to analysis with your internal proprietary data. Could be like, let's say, within custom GPTs, or you want a little bit of a higher level analytics.
It depends. The answer is whichever, any platform you like that has an API that can handle it. You could speak to your customer service rep. I would do it over email and have ChatGPT audit that if you haven't dealt with this stuff before. So you can know if they're just trying to upsell you and they're not actually telling you the real answers. But you should make sure that has API access, and it's a well-made API that the things you'd want to access are accessible via that API. And then otherwise, any system can access any of these, can query APIs. So you don't have to worry about which platform, as long as that platform has API access.
And then in terms of, let's say, processing documents, where you want to put a document in there to have it break it down, lease document, things like that. When it comes to processing PDFs and information, which LLM or which off-the-shelf tool would you use that is the best for this specific task?
If you're using ChatGPT, just stay on O3. Use O3. Use O4 Mini High or O3. O4 is going to be, again, the naming scheme. I'm sorry. 4.0 is not really going to be up to the task, in my opinion. O3 is going to be the best, but if there is somewhat of a limit unless you want to upgrade to the $200 a month plan. There's if you run into usage limits, you can decide if it's worth it for you. But I would say O3 or O4 Mini High. You could try. Also, it should do a decent job. I use Claude for these sort of things. I think it is very, again, person that is very analytically minded, for lack of a better term, and it gets things clearly. So I find that's what for the underwriting model, I use Claude because I find it to be very good at this sort of thing. Gemini 2.5 Pro, if you're on Gemini, Grok 4 should be good at this. Copilot, I don't know. I don't use Copilot.
And then I see a question, so we can get a little more into in terms of like bill paying, accounts payable, keeping track of invoices, what we've done in that space, how automated those processes.
Yeah, so we recently actually just built for a client for accounts, specifically for accounts payable, where they have an accounts payable email address, and every invoice that comes in gets actually read by Claude and added to us and put into their they have a spreadsheet they use to keep track. It's put into their spreadsheet. It's been so far working very well. It's the higher level models. When you're dealing with very simple prompts with high level models, they're usually very accurate. Claude Sonnet 4 is a high level model. You can even add some reasoning if you want it to be extra short. And if you were saying we don't want any human review, we want to be like zero tolerance, then if cost is not an object, this again, all relatively speaking, is still cheaper than even a VA. You can have it do multiple passes, send in get the result, get another result, and send it in 3 times and have a fourth one kind of look over the result and choose the majority. Or you could do something like that. You could build a system like that as redundancy built in, so you could for sure have definite accuracy. Because the error rate over here is, if the error rate is 10%, 15%, you don't have to, if you have a 3-time redundancy, you're statistically going to get it right every time.
And then just a question, I know this is something that has probably crossed everyone's mind and it's something that you hear of. What would you say in terms of the security and the privacy in terms of putting personal information into these large language models?
Sure. Okay, so this is actually a good thing. So I'm going to demonstrate, I'm going to show on ChatGPT how to deal with this. And then it's kind of for my platform of how you deal with this. So this is in ChatGPT. You go into settings, you go into security, and
Data
you go
controls.
into, sorry, you're right, data controls, my bad. And you go over here, you see where it says improve the model for everyone. You want to make sure that this is off, because if this is on, you're giving them permission to use what you upload. Beyond that point, once you've shut this off, and there's an equivalent of this in every AI, Claude happens to be is off by default. But they all have this option. DeepSeek is not reliable, besides the fact it's Chinese and whatever the security implications that has. Besides for that, they don't have the option to turn this off. And you use DeepSeek on the DeepSeek site, they are using your information. There's no way for you to even tell them not to. But everyone has that concept. Once that's off, there's no real difference between ChatGPT, which is run by OpenAI, versus Google, which you're trusting the information, or Microsoft, or whoever it is. It's just however you evaluate that. Do you look at their security evaluations? Do you look at what their official policies are? All these different things. Do you go to them? Do you trust them? Why do you trust them? So however you determine which software vendors you trust, OpenAI is no different. Anthropic is no different. As long as once they say they're not doing it, then they're in the same boat as everyone else.
Okay, so thank you, Aaron. We're going to stay on after for questions, but just to closing remarks is that it's like we say right now, AI is at the worst place that it'll ever, it's only getting better. It's only going to be more powerful. The use cases are endless. The way to start using it is literally by just starting to use it, jumping in, and if you all found this valuable, and thank you.
All right,
Okay,
so
we're just going through some questions that I saw is when is it going to get to the point of taking the place of, say, the paid tool, CoStar, Property Shark, LoopNet, where, they're actually paying for that information. They're doing the manual research of finding that information out.
So I think that depends on really, because they all make a lot of their information that makes them valuable is public. It's all public information technically, but it's not very accessible, because let's say it might be available in file cabinets in some municipality somewhere, or it's available online, but it's not scrapable because it's in some really old-fashioned database that's not set up for the modern web. So then it's until that point, they're not really going to be able to, there's not much you're going to be able to do, because they're having the man hours to go in and do it. So the hands-on, until Tesla has the Optimus robots actually showing up, you're showing up to do it. There's nothing to replace it with. You need human hands-on to go scan it in or write it down or whatever they're doing. If it's scraped from a website and they actually have to do manual thing, there are AIs that can use websites, but they're not amazing. I don't have a forecast for when they will be, because they've been around for well over a year now, and there's been virtually no progress on their capabilities. Maybe a little bit here and there, but nowhere near the other AI progress we've seen. And so I have no forecast on when they'll be able to do that. But presumably, eventually, they'll get it to the point where it can go through municipality website, or the municipalities will update their websites to be, let's say, have an API. Like again, the New York Department of Finance, anything that's on the New York Department of Finance website, except maybe PDF uploads, but the data, most of the data within them is you can run an API request for. So there's no real barriers. Anything that you could find that way, CoStar has no mode on that. There's nothing with them. What are they going to do?
I find something that's a tool that's pretty basic, that's really powerful, and it's for sure beginner getting started, is custom GPTs, where it can be, let's say, on a company level, where you're putting in your company policies and procedures, you're putting in, let's say, your lease documents, and you're asking it questions. You can set up those reminders, when are the leases coming due, be having it, and customer service tickets, it's a pretty basic setup. So within ChatGPT, it's just basically what you're doing is you're putting in a prompt once, it's living there, and then you want to, let's say from a document, anytime you put a lease document in, you want it to pull when does this lease end? What are the different things within that lease? So that's something that you can have that prompt built in, and then all you need to do is just drop the document in there, and it's going to give you the output as if you just put that whole prompt in.
Let me show an example of how you can make those. 1 second. There we go. Okay, it's going a bit slow. I'm just going to do their creation. So let's say we're looking for one for answering customer service queries based on the attached document. So you don't even need to know how to make this. I just said what I want to do, and then ChatGPT will actually go and make that. When this is finished, I'm going to go into it's done. I'm going to go into configure over here. Said it was done. A second. There we go. See, customer service assistant. It gave it instructions only work off the attached document. And then I would go over here and I would press upload files and I would give it our customer service like rules, and then it could answer those questions. I could choose which tools it has access to, can it search the web or not, recommended model if I wanted to. And then you could publish this. If you have a Teams account, you can publish this internally or within your organization. If you have a regular account, you can publish it either for everyone or if you want it just for your own private use, or only access with the link. But you can. So I have a few of these I made for myself, more programming related because that's what I deal with all day. But that's the concept.
Okay. I guess we'll go through if there's any more questions. Now is the time to put them in. If not, I wanted to say thank you. I'm putting our contact information in the chat where you can reference that.
Let me see if I can, in multiple pieces, let me see if I can get that prompt in a few pieces. Okay. So, still too big. Can I attach files? Yeah, I can attach. I'm going to make it into a file and attach it. Give me a second. Okay, so Mendy, we have anything else?
I see a question. Is there a direct prompt that you can share that works from OM to underwriting?
So not exactly, because the real details for the prompt would be is which specific bits of information you're looking for is very important. But meaning it would just be the structure of it would be what is here. You're my underwriting. This is the general broad strokes. You're an underwriting assistant. I need you to go and I need you to read this OM that you will be provided. I need you to pull out, and then you would list the information and put it into, and because depending on what you're doing with how you're going to do it further, you say I'll put into a JSON structure or some other way of how you want it sent and how you want it returned. Because if you have building into a program, you need it structured properly so that the code can read it. But that's really all there is to it. And then you have the code to do the rest of the entering it into the underwriting model. I wouldn't really recommend saying, oh, build me the underwriting model from scratch as you go, because that's going to be much more finicky. Because if it messes up on the code, it has to write the whole code to build the spreadsheet. And if it messes up one word in that code, the whole thing fails. So and it's dozens or hundreds of lines. So it's not I wouldn't recommend to do it that way. I would recommend you build it as part of a larger program, and the prompt is just keep it simple. Also, the more reliable it'll be is the more straightforward you keep it. So you just put it in and you send it back. You have a program that just sends in the OM with the very specific details and sends it back, and then you process it separately.
And then just in terms of what brokers are using it in terms of like lead scraping, looking for specific properties, those rules where it's doing all that work automatically for them. So I just shared the prompt. Sorry, that was actually that was the sample report. Happens to be my mistake, but sorry, that was, where did I put that? Just if anyone wants to come on video and ask any questions. So that prompt, so I just sent that prompt. So it's the idea of be very specific in what you want and what you're trying to get out. And if you had just hired a researcher to work for you, what would you tell them to look for? They've never worked in real estate before, but they're very good at research. What would you tell them? So you would go and explain to them. Maybe they worked in like a little dabbled in real estate. They know the terms, but that's about it. So you would go and you would send that to them.
And that you would send it in as the prompt. And then again, you would use the higher level model that could actually sit there and do web search and all this stuff.
And I just saw some question, is this going to be recorded and sent out after? The answer is yes.
It is being recorded, and yes, it will be sent out after.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Are there any other questions? I was saying top quality management. Yes, we do. Yes, we do that. Yeah, as my dad said, we do. That is what we do. We do help companies set up these sort of systems. I think that's all. So if that's everything, oh, scrape public records for recently traded. Isn't traded, if I'm not mistaken, traded puts that out. So if you could just have something polling their Instagram or polling their website, that should get you the information you need, at least for New York. I guess really the answer is just identify the sources, identify what sources would have that, or try asking ChatGPT with what sources would have this, and then see if it's able to access them. And if it is, then great, you're done. If not, see if you can set up some sort of API access for a scraper or something like that.
And I see I got a message privately. There's people that want to ask questions. If you can just unlock the
Sure.
the mute in the video.
I will unlock the video is unlocked. Let me unlock the mute. All right. Unmuting is now allowed.
Okay, so now for all those that don't want to be shy.
So the system would
I have a
basically
question.
hide.
I think top quality management was first.
The question is, so basically, for an example, if you want to set up a system that would pull the information of all of the lease renewals, so pull the information of follow-up, send out the renewals, follow up with the tenants that didn't respond, all of the renewal process, which is currently time-consuming, all of that could be set up in certain rules that they would do all of that on its own, sort of. Is that correct?
If you can define what needs to be done, and anything that doesn't need to be done doesn't need to be done. So you'd have to check with your systems, with the systems you use. But anything that doesn't need to be done, like mouse click and drag, typing, then if it can be done using the API, then or using an API, then yeah, it can be automated.
Got it. All right, and follow up on tenants. Make sure that we receive the response to 60 days, 90 days. All of these rules, you can all of them put them into the system so they could follow the rules that
Yeah,
you
so
put
you
into
could-
play.
Yeah, you could have it so you can have it set that you have a database of tenants that it checks against when the email comes in. If it matches on the database, then it reads the email, and if it has the proper document, puts it into a storage or checks off a box that, oh, we got that document. And then you just have the system has an automated thing that if the box is not checked after a certain amount of time, it automatically sends out a reminder email to them. The details would have to be obviously depends on the system. That's conceptually, yeah.
Got it. And does it integrate with, for example, with a rent manager or any of these management softwares that are out there?
Right. So this is what I was saying with you have to check about their API. I'm not familiar specifically with Rent Manager, but you'd have to see what their API, if they have an API, what their API allows for. Some have an API, but it's really expensive. I forget which one.
I think it was that
Folio.
Folio.
No, yeah, Folio's a few $100s, I think. But what's the
It was a Yardi.
The one that I
Yardi has a $5,000 charges $5,000 a month for their API access. So that's you got to be absolutely certain that it's worthwhile before you're gonna pull the trigger on that.
Yeah, but 5,000 used to be an expensive number in general, but if you're thinking about if you could replace an employee or you have 3 people on your team and only need 2, that's where it starts making sense.
I have a question in regards to when you think of ChatGPT and AI, it's questions you're asking it through that through their platform. How do I connect these to my current softwares? Like again, you mentioned AI's integrations and things like that, but when it comes to bill paying, when it comes to other aspects of it, is it connecting it to my Gmail account or Microsoft account? Are they connected? It's possible to connect to them that they basically scan important emails or stuff like that, or it's just a question-based platform?
Oh, 100%. You could connect it to your email. Everything has to be set up with rules because again, it can't, in the same way that if you don't tell your employees what to do, then they're not gonna be able to do anything either. Yeah, but you could connect it into your email. You can have it checking your emails. You can have it checking your emails every minute. Let's say even, is there a new email? Oh, there's a new email. Who's it from? That's all these different, who's it from? What? Okay, so if it's this from this person, then we're going to prompt the AI with this question. From this person, we're prompted with that question. You could, if you're dealing with a small enough data set, you could have the AI decide what it's going to even think about. But I wouldn't recommend that at like enterprise enterprises like next level. But like, I wouldn't recommend that at a large scale. If you're dealing with hundreds or thousands of people of possibilities, then it's going to get overwhelmed. But then you would have more of a rule-based system, and then you have to have a rule-based system, and then the AI would be built on top of that.
Thank you.
Isn't there an issue with ChatGPTs where they were exposing data to strangers?
Okay, so this is early in the beginning actually. So we covered this before that if you are worried about that, I'm going to share my screen again. Just you go and I'll share my
There's
screen again really
a video
fast.
that we're going to send out after.
Oh yeah, so we'll do it like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you'll see there's a setting you can look up yourself. There's a setting in there to say don't send my data, don't use my data to train. This really entered the public consciousness like back when ChatGPT first started, when it was just it's called Chat. By the way, the name ChatGPT is so clunky because it was starting as a like a research project. It wasn't a product. So ChatGPT is just chat, and GPT is the technology behind it. That's why it's clunky like that. But the point is, there was no chat, there was no accounts, there was nothing. So they were a research project. They let it train on every conversation that went through. They wanted to see what would happen. Hey, if we trained it on every single conversation, what would happen? Someone from, I believe it was Samsung, actually went and used it with real company data. And then someone else asked it a question about Samsung and it just spit that out because it was in its database. But it doesn't do that anymore because they realized that, first of all, it was messing with the model to just because anyone who said anything, because people could just say ridiculous things and it would get built into the model. So they realized that, but also they realized that they're an actual product and people have privacy concerns. So they put in the ability to say, don't share my data. And then it's like, if you trust them, if you don't.
But a few weeks ago, there was a court order that ordered ChatGPT to save all chats. And there was a big, like a scandal that basically even things that you delete and they removed, they were actually saving.
That really, again, but that's something that I point is there's no different from Gmail. What if Google got a court order that said all Gmail emails have to be stored, even those are deleted, even all search results we kept, even if they were in incognito, we have to keep them. It's just a matter of it's data like any other data, and you're giving it to a cloud provider. So it's the same risk as anyone else. It's not because it's AI, it's any different because again, it's not going into the general model pool and then getting spit out elsewhere. It's that's just a governance and legal issue. It's nothing to do with the fact that it's AI.
No, not about the fact that it's AI, but like I've seen these issues with things being leaked, even recently, meaning even in the past few months, there have been stories coming out with personal information that people put in and then somehow got leaked out.
Again, that's just if you don't trust OpenAI as a provider, that could be something. These stories you don't want to use them, then you could go to Google, you could go to Anthropic, but it's not inherent to the technology. That's what I'm trying to say.
Understood.
And then I just see a question in the chat, the daily like ChatGPT checks where you have it looking for headlines and things like that. The question was, do you have to go back to the website to check the results, or does it come to your email address?
If you have the app, I don't think they have email notifications, but if you have the app on your phone, it could come up as a push notification.
I found that it could send you to the email that you're signed into, but it would be a link that takes you back into ChatGPT. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. If that's everything, then thank you all for joining. And there we go. We set it up to read my emails. You want to set up to read your emails. So it's not the ChatGPT app that'll do that. We have to set up more of somewhat of an automation. You go into make.com, you go into Zapier, you could go into N8N, and you can connect these. They have email connectors, they have Gmail connectors, they have connected for Outlook, Gmail, all of them, any other. They have for Zoho also. I'm saying that's basically all the providers that you're going to use, or you could set it up with, I think, IMAP or any other, if you're using like something more niche, and they can check periodically at a frequency of a minute of up to even every minute, check for new emails. And then you could have further steps. Oh, when an email comes in, now here's what you should do. So you could send it to ChatGPT. You could do other things with it. You can just, send it to ChatGPT and have it tag that email. You can have it write a draft response. There's a lot you can do, but it's really any of these systems.
I can add there's the off-the-shelf tools that are very good in terms of email organization and let's say email drafting within your email, where it's not necessarily pulling it out of your email to read it, but within your email, it's reading your email, it's inboxing, it's creating different folders, where it's doing all that intelligently more than Apple Mail and Google is doing currently.
Okay. All right, the recording we will be sending out. I saw someone ask that. We will be sending out the recording. The Redeal guys will be sending out the recording afterwards. If anyone here who signed up through got it from me or Mendy or my father, and they wanted to get that information, they want to get the recording, you just reach out to us. I think Mendy put a contact information in.
In the chat, yeah.
But yeah, so you could reach out to us and we'll send it to you. Okay. Unless anyone else has any questions, I think that will be it for the evening. Thank you everyone for coming, and have a great night.
Thank you.